We are very lucky and excited to have Jonathan here today. I am selfishly excited to just pick his brain for an hour, partly because there are not many successful, long-term successful companies that sell to small market farms. It's a hard thing to do. Our business does it, Jonathan's does it. We do software, he does hardware. There's different people that do differently, but it's a long road for a lot of reasons, right? Just like farming is hard, as it turns out, selling in the farming industry is also hard. But Farmer's Friend is such an exceptional brand and a company that we've, had really looked up to be frank, right, in our own journey scaling our own company. Um, and so we're, yeah, very happy to have Jonathan here today to talk to us a little bit about his experiences. We've got a couple icebreakers just to sort of help us understand Jonathan's background and, what led him here. And then after that, we're going to talk hardcore property for crops and just what Jonathan's process was to sort of discover that on his own family farm. So anyway, let's start actually life on the farm, Jonathan. So you grew up on a farm. Maybe just talk to us about what that upbringing was like, the best part for you, at what age you started to become aware that farming was a business, not just, planting things in a field. Maybe bring us back and sort of give us some highlights.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. Well, first of all, thanks for the introduction. We're thrilled to also be kind of partnered with you guys on you know, mutual benefiting each other's companies. It's really cool and it's neat to see how you guys are putting your heart and souls into furthering the agriculture community. So it's definitely a mutually beneficial relationship. And yeah, thanks for the opportunity to do the webinar. So yeah, my background, the short story, I guess. My grandparents bought a 200-acre farm after my grandpa retired, and he had grown up in Middle Tennessee here and wanted to move back. He was a doctor, and my parents were both teachers at the time, and were like nowhere near agriculture. It wasn't really something that was in our family, and so my grandparents started like dropping little hints, like they wanted all the kids to move to the farm and that type of thing. My parents were like, absolutely not. That's never going to happen. So just go ahead and forget about that. But I don't even think it was 2 years later, my parents, sectioned off their little 5-acre part of the farm and built a house. But even at that time, the intention was never farming.
Right.
My dad got a job um, at a local private Christian school here
Hmm.
in town, and he was teaching. And so from there, he taught for a couple of years, but it was like a really intense, like one room school where you're like there early in the morning and home late at night after, grading and next day's class prep. And it just wasn't the family like lifestyle that they wanted. At the time, 3 kids, 3 young kids, and he just, wanted to do something that was more like, home based, that the family could be more involved in. And so he quit his job farming, or sorry, he quit his job teaching, and not immediately, but within, a few months after doing some just odd job, stuff around, was like, hey, the Lord really kind of led them through different ways, feeling like farming was the path that he had for them. And again, like no background in farming, so it's just like kind of ridiculous, but they felt the calling and dove head first into it. So at that time I was like probably 5 years old, I think. So I don't really remember that much, but
Hmm.
so my whole childhood and young adult was like just on the farm. But I do remember some of the early days for sure. They had this real, I don't exactly know how they got the idea, but the idea initially was like organic you pick strawberries was the mission.
Hmm.
Because on paper, strawberries are a cash crop. You can make a lot of money with organic strawberries, and it's like you pick. We can do a bunch of them. We're not too far from like Nashville, the greater Nashville
That's what I was gonna ask, right? So
area.
you
And
had
so,
like an urban area close to you.
yeah, I mean, within like, 30 minutes to an hour,
Right,
there's a
right.
lot of like urban, so to get people to come out on a weekend for picking, like, it's not really that hard. And so, yeah, that was kind of the goal. And I mean, I can't go into details, but we really learned early on that even on paper, if it's a cash crop, it's like, oh, we can make tons of money doing this, but you know, everything that can go wrong might go wrong, and it did go wrong the first few years. We didn't have the the knowledge. There wasn't information out there.
Mm-hmm.
Locals were like, "Oh, don't worry about weeds; they'll winter kill." And it's like, you get to the winter, the first frost comes, and the weeds don't die, and you're like, "Oh boy." We didn't have any. Um, yeah, no, we used no weed barrier. We literally just planted directly in the soil. And so then the fruit all rotted in this. It was just a nightmare. So from there, after like a couple of years of really just trying to do the strawberry thing, it was like, okay, we got to diversify.
Mm-hmm.
That's you got to diversify. So then we really branched out into starting to do more vegetables. But initially, it was just like, transplants and like hanging baskets and stuff like that. Again,
Mm-hmm.
all stuff that was like, let's try to tack on as much as we can to the spring strawberry season.
Right. That
Um,
makes good sense.
yeah. So that was kind of the gist of it. I mean, growing up on a farm was awesome. My parents were both teachers, so both from, I guess, principle, and also just they had the ability. My mom homeschooled all us kids, so we literally
Mm-hmm.
grew up on the farm, and it was
We
great.
were we were just talking about that offline. Not a lot of Disney in your house. Not a lot of
Yeah,
Disney
exactly. Yeah,
movies. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Don't ask me my favorite Disney character.
Right, right,
Yeah,
right.
exactly. So I mean, it was just a lot of work, but also a lot of fun, and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just roaming the farm, roaming the woods, building forts. We had a big pond, so swimming in the summer times, and just, it's just honestly, I mean, I feel very blessed, but it was a pretty idyllic childhood.
I'm not even at the second question, and I'm sort of going off script here, but
All good.
it sounds. I want to understand, and just this is the last thing, and then we're going to talk profitable crops, but I want to understand from your words what you feel like led you to deciding to, instead of be a farmer yourself, you grew up in it, you loved it, great
Hmm.
childhood, b built some resilience, shit's going to go wrong, stuff's going to go right, like,
Yeah,
you sort of figure it out, build the knowledge. So you were on that path, but you serve farmers now. You are not one yourself, right? You
yeah,
decided at some point, I want to make farming better for the people that do farm like you used to.
yeah,
Can you take me back to that moment? When did you think you wanted to do that? When did you come up with the idea? What was the first product? Obviously, Farmer's Friend is a long hit. We don't need to, do the whole shebang, but take me
yeah.
back to just the earliest genesis of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and I've gotten that question, or people have made kind of
Mm-hmm.
comments about, oh, you didn't want to farm, got out of there as quick as you could, whatever, that type of thing. It's really not the case. Like, I
Right.
genuinely enjoyed farming. I enjoyed yeah, growing up on the farm, but pretty from very early on, my mom primarily really encouraged our own entrepreneurial endeavors. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we did a lot of different things, but like baking bread for selling at farmers markets through our
Mm-hmm.
CSA. Eventually, we kind of transitioned into more of a CSA operation. Um, so that was always encouraged. But I don't know. To be honest, I just had a natural, mechanical, inventive kind of aptitude. And so from very early on, a lot of like jobs on the farm, it was just like, all right, this kind of sucks being out here, on your hands and knees, harvesting salad greens was the one,
Yeah.
like, we should figure out a better way to do this. Um, but there was so many other examples of that, where I learned, taught myself to weld pretty early on. And so just, like, go back to the barn, dad would be like, all right, we got to dig all these potatoes, and this is half an acre of
Not
potatoes or
something
something.
I've heard often. Hey, I'm a self-taught welder. Just,
Yeah, well,
picked it up
it's a
one
good thing
day in
to
the
it's a good
garage.
thing to learn if you're
Uh-huh.
farming, for sure.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Um, you can save yourself a lot of headache.
Right.
Yeah. So, anyways, it was just like, my dad would get frustrated oftentimes because It's like, where's Jonathan? And I'm like back at the barn trying to like, rig up some sort of attachment for the tractor or like, something for the BCS to try to like,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I remember at one point we had this brilliant idea to try to grow grain and like, wheat. And,
Right.
that's a lot of work, but we did have like a sickle bar. So it's like, okay, we're just going to cut it with the sickle bar and then like pick it up by hand. I was like, no, no, we're not doing that. So I went back and like, built this catch thing so you could kind of go like 5 or 10 feet and then grab it all up. And, it was stuff like that, just kind of constantly. I just enjoyed figuring out how to like
Yeah.
make random, like monotonous kind of jobs
You would
easier.
have you would have made a killing 200 years ago. Agricultural revolution. I mean, you would
Yeah,
have been
yeah.
the guy that they would have been coming to come up with
Well,
all the tools, you
we're
know?
still working on it,
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, yeah, so that was really it. And then I liked, fixing equipment. And so at one point
Yeah.
I had kind of a stint doing like small engine repair, had a little farm-based business, fixing neighbors' equipment and stuff like that. But really the real early beginnings of Farmer's Friend was actually spending time with Elliot Coleman on his farm.
I
Again,
see.
can't go into the backstory, but we had the opportunity to go visit his farm and spend a couple days kind of helping, and he picked up on that mechanical, inventive kind of aptitude that I had just from our
Hmm.
conversations and being there on the farm. And he was the one that, really encouraged me, like, you should work on this greens harvester concept because, salad greens are a cash crop, but it's so hard to harvest them, and there's not
Hmm.
really any commercially viable equipment for small
Hmm.
scale farms. So that was the beginning of that. I was 15 at the time. We didn't go to market for about 4 years, but that was the early sort of beginnings of that
That's
inspiration.
awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's a perfect segue because now
Yeah.
we're going to talk about how you found out that most profitable crop and then ultimately some of the tools that you guys now have that
Hmm.
led to the ability to frankly, have it be the most profitable crop. So, we gave away the answer a little bit. It's a Salanova lettuce, but let's just backtrack. High level.
Hmm.
You're a farmer now. You're back in farmer land, right? You're
Yeah.
looking at your list of crops. What are the principles? How do you approach? I don't mean necessarily, I guess, from like an accounting perspective. I think we can all, we understand the P&L of it. And what are the principles that you applied, what was your process to go and figure out that Salanova lettuce was the most profitable crop that you could produce?
Yeah, I mean, good question. So it's back to something I mentioned earlier, and I think we can bring this back into the equation. But basically, we had switched at one point to primarily CSA. Like that
Right.
was the biggest part of what we were doing. And if you're doing a CSA, you have to have variety, right? You can't just give a box of lettuce every week. You got to have some root crops. You got to have, your. I mean, we would try to get at least like sweet corn in a couple boxes around like 4th of July,
Right.
stuff like,
Right.
stuff that it's hard to really justify just from a straight like cash flow perspective. Like it's a lot of work. It's, takes up a lot of space on the farm. Now that was one of the things that we weren't really limited by like a lot of other places because we did have enough acreage that we could kind of spread out. We weren't like
Mm-hmm.
just doing
Mm-hmm.
it in the backyard or something like that. So we did have the luxury, I guess, to do some more field crops like corn and winter squash and stuff like that. But we did a lot of different variety over the years, which if you strictly look at it from like a profitability standpoint, a lot of those are harder to justify. But
Mm-hmm.
it was part of the
Part
CS
of the blended offering. Right.
experience and everything. Yeah. And
But so
so,
step one, what I'm hearing you say is like most profitable crop is fine, but the place to start is know your customer. How do
yeah,
they
I mean,
buy? Yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. So I'm not necessarily saying that this is the best way that everybody should go. CSA is, I think
Right.
it's been proven at this point that there's different models that, a lot of customers respond better to than just a straight, like no
Yeah.
choice in what you get. We're just going to give you, bok choy, whether you like it or not. That I think a lot of people have kind of moved on from that model, but at the time, like that was the model. And so, we did feel like there was some kind of obligation to have a variety of crops and some interest to the box. So it's not just,
That's right.
it's not just like radishes and lettuce every week. So, and even if you're doing like a farm stand, or like a farmer's market, you want to have enough variety to where it's interesting to
Yeah,
people.
same principle. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But, I think that there is a lot of benefit, and the way a lot of farms are looking at things now, more on like, we got to look at what makes the most money, what turns the fastest, days to harvest, profitability, like how much labor goes into it, all of that. So, um, on the lettuce side of things, so, in the early days, leafy like salad greens, like you would prep a bed and you would use like you'd do like your 6-row seeder or whatever. You'd
Mm-hmm.
precision seed like 12 rows of salad greens, or arugula or something, and we did a decent amount of that, but to be honest, we never really did a lot of it. And the reason for it, I guess, for us was like, it's kind of tricky. You got to really have perfect bed prep. You got to have really workable soil. We have a lot of where the farm is. It's a lot of like clay, and so it's harder for us to get this perfect kind of bed prep for direct seeding salad greens directly in. And so we did some of it in our greenhouses and stuff, but we never did a ton of it. So like, interestingly enough, my family farm, yeah, they used the greens harvester, but they were never like the biggest user of the greens harvester, because they weeds are then a big issue. You got to make sure that your bed prep is like weed free and everything. And so I don't know if I'm jumping the gun at this point, but when Salanova became
No, keep
an
rolling. Yeah, you're
option,
good.
that was like a different kind of paradigm, because you do it in, you're seeding in soil blocks or trays, and you don't have to have like a perfect bed prep.
Right.
You use fabric to block your weeds, but
Right.
you still are able to get this kind of loose leaf salad mix.
Mm-hmm.
And so, anyways, that's kind of some of the backstory there. But yeah, I think that the question on like what crops to grow, it's like you got to be looking at what's the fastest crops to get to maturity. What do you have a market for? What can you sell? And the reality is, salad greens, whether it's Salanova or direct seeded leaf greens, um, are pretty easy to sell, because whether people like it or not, everybody feels like they need to eat a salad every once in a while. So
They go great on burgers too, a little bit of
yeah,
lettuce on the
exactly.
burger,
Yeah,
right? I
that's
mean, yeah,
right.
yeah. No, I hear you. Okay, got it. So, recapping it basically, look, you had some experience with some other lettuces. The process was different. The beautiful thing about the Salanova is it actually came sort of, I'm sorry, the terminal, I forget, like pre-potted.
Well, you're transplanting,
Thank
you're
you. Okay.
transplanting it into the soil rather than direct seeding. And
Thank you. Got it.
that is easier to control that process. It's easier to get good, consistent results. Direct seeding, again, is challenging. Direct seeding into the soil is challenging, especially if your soil is not just like, you know, a
I
loamy.
assume it couldn't have been smooth sailing the whole way with the Salanova lettuce. Like, was it the silver bullet? Like, oh my gosh, everything worked perfect, or there's a trade-off somewhere that you guys had to work through.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's like, the Salanova, sure, it's a great crop. It's profitable, but the farm
Right.
definitely does, tomatoes are a big cash crop for the farm. Strawberries are still a big cash crop. Once you kind of
Uh-huh.
get past like, we have to, it's like, strawberries is the only thing. Like, once we got past that, it's like, no, but strawberries could be like a really significant boost, in the spring if everything goes well. And so they still do strawberries every year, and that is a good crop. And yeah, there's a lot of other things, but when the Salanova production really got kicking and they dialed in, most of this, admittedly, was after I was, full time with Farmer's Friend, because I mean, I guess I should have looked it up, but Salanova really only became commercially available like in 20, I don't know. It feels like it was after the harvester was on the market.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is kind of when, I think, maybe 2015 or something like that. And so they started incorporating it. And also, we need to give credit where credit's due. Ray Tyler down in Selmer, Tennessee,
Mm-hmm.
has had also put a lot of energy into developing some good processes um, for growing salad greens, especially through the summer in southern, hot
Yeah, because
environment.
sorry, he's in Arizona, is he not?
No, he's
Where
in
is he?
Selmer. He's in Selmer, Tennessee, which is about 2 hours
He's in
southwest of
Tennessee.
us.
I must be thinking of somebody
Yeah.
different. Sorry. Right.
Yeah.
Can we double click though on that? It's the quick plant fabric, right? Like that was the
Yeah.
sort of thing that helped keep the weeds out where like if we go back to when you were 5, you had these like nightmares of, weeds like creeping in and,
Yeah.
harming. So like all of a sudden, I guess whatever, life comes full circle like at some moment. But
Yeah.
now you're growing the Salanova lettuce and you're using the quick plant fabric. How big of an unlock was it? So your bed doesn't have to be perfect. I can put this
Yeah.
down and I can go to sleep at night feeling like, all right, my yield is going to be okay, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, like using fabric is a game changer. Now,
mhm,
there's so many aspects of it, but keeping weeds suppressed, keeping dirt splatter off your plants, which
yeah,
dramatically decreases the amount of time you have to put into washing and prepping, for sale. But it also reduces disease and stuff because you're not getting all that dirt and stuff down into the core of the plant. So, I mean, but yeah, not having to weed, it keeps you do see better yields. And, we should probably do more like research into this and try to understand why that is. But my family has seen that, Ray Tyler has seen that, and a lot of others have seen like growing in fabric over just in bare exposed soil, you will see a yield increase. And that's not just with Salanova. That's a lot of different things. At one point, this has been a couple of years ago, my dad experimented with doing their sweet corn in fabric. Just like they transplant, they start their sweet corn in soil blocks actually, and then they just transplant it into the holes in the fabric. And he did 2 rows side by side, and after a few months, it looked like they were planted like at a completely different time. The ones in the fabric were significantly taller and more robust, even though everything else was exactly the same. So it retains more moisture in the soil, and I mean it's just all around better. I've lost audio. Hold on, let me see.
oh no,
Something.
sorry guys, it was me. It was me. I'm muted here.
All right, no
Apologies.
problem.
Let me ask a sort of somewhat it's like a sort of strategic question, a philosophic question, I guess, if you will, right? Like sort of just take us off track for a quick second here.
Yeah,
Um, how do you cultivate a attitude of experimentation on the farm, particularly if you have something that is good, not great?
yeah,
Where is great? Is it even out there? Is it worth even trying and reaching? Like some growers, even if they're not brand new to it, they know what they're doing. It's like pretty good. I have some skills.
yeah,
I know how to do this thing. But what you're
yeah,
talking about is you guys sort of continue, sounds like even continue today, your folks sort
yeah,
of meander through and try some new things.
yeah,
They can work, it cannot work, it can be expensive, it cannot. You get what I'm saying? Can you just
yeah,
sort of talk to us about how you approach making those decisions when they do have a financial impact, at the end of the
yeah,
day, right? If it doesn't go right.
yeah. No, it's a good point, and I think that my dad is particularly good at trying to always be like experimenting, trying something new. And at times that's probably, hurt because try something new, it really fails bad. It's not, it can be really devastating. I think at this point though, there's enough information out there that you should be able to pick, have like 80% of your operation that should be pretty dialed in. You're growing crops that other growers have already proved out. You're using systems that everybody else. But like, you do have to be willing to kind of experiment and try new things. And I mean, there's nothing like um, you know, I don't know, farming, there's just so many unknowns with farming. Like it's not a sterile kind of like lab environment. Everything's different. Everything's, from one year to the next. Um, you're always going to have different environmental pressures, different disease and pest pressures, different, it's just so many variables. So you kind of have, like, I feel like you have to have that mindset of like uh, curiosity and like experimenting, trying to do better each year. I think that's just kind of like has to be baked into the mindset of a successful farmer. But at the same time, back to the like, a big part of your farm needs to be as much as possible just dialed in, and you can't gamble everything on, again, like all your eggs in one basket. It's a bad idea.
Is there any advice that you would give to a new farmer or market gardener that's starting out that has to go figure out what is that 80% of things that
Mhm.
I can do well? So there's companies like yours and, like ours and others that have tools and systems and sort of proven ways that they can increase efficiency and, do things the right way, get their products to market. But
Yeah.
they still have to pick the products that are going to work
Mhm.
for them in their area that their customers want, right? So if we sort of if initially the idea is we've got 80% dialed and we're going to experiment with this 20% thoughtfully, right?
Yep. Yep.
Let's go backwards in time to the grower that's still figuring out what's that 80% that I can sort of rely on.
Mhm.
Do you have any advice, if any of them are listening now, on how they go about dialing in that 80%?
Yeah. I mean, I think that depending on where you're located in the country, depending on what kind of community, like are you in a community where there's a lot of like uh I don't know, like culinary curiosity? Like do people want
Mm,
the abstract kind of crops and stuff? You got to figure all that out. But from what I've seen, it seems like tomatoes and salad greens are like ubiquitous. Like doesn't matter where anybody is, whether they're, outside of Denver, Colorado, or whether they're in like, somewhere in the South where people only want like, tomatoes and okra and yellow squash or whatever. Like it's, those two crops seem like they are pretty universally winners. And so, I would say you got to probably go after those two crops. And, a lot of farms really do well with like radishes, again, for salad mixes. But yeah, I mean, salad greens and tomatoes. I mean, those are cash crops on just about every farm I've been to.
they go in a salad and they both go on a burger, so it is
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
both ends of the spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah. But you got to look at where you're at too, because again, even with tomatoes, like um you might be in an area where a lot of people want really kind of bizarre, like heirloom tomatoes and stuff
Right,
like that.
right.
Around here, like, I mean, yeah, Nashville has become pretty, there's a lot of interesting, like,
Lot of tastes, a lot of sort of new
yeah. So, I
tastes in
mean, I'm
Nashville.
sure they
Yeah.
can do well there, but like, if we're going to a local, like, trying to target our local customers, they want their just like stereotypical, like,
Give me
beefsteak,
a beefsteak. Yeah.
yeah. It's like, what's this yellow purple thing? Like, I don't,
Sure.
I remember one year we tried to grow purple okra. Okra is a big
Uh-huh.
thing around here. The
Okay.
green okra is like good, but it's like purple okra is better.
Yeah.
And we would grow the green and the purple and like mix it together in a big basket on our farmers market table, and all the locals would come through and pick out all the green, and we'd be
Come
left
on.
with a box, just a basket of purple okra. Nobody even wanted to try it. It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
that you gotta definitely understand your clientele. But yeah, I mean, I think tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, salad greens, all that kind of uh, definitely winners. Has been for us and has been for pretty much every other farm I've visited.
I appreciate the specificity of that answer because you could have easily blown that off about like, yeah, soil type and and like a bunch of things, but hey man, lettuce and tomatoes. Lettuce and
I
tomatoes,
mean,
baby.
you're going to have different challenges,
Yeah.
depending on where you are and what your soil type is, and yeah, I mean, there's going to be different challenges,
Sure,
but
no doubt.
you know,
No doubt.
yeah.
Can we quickly recap the Farmer's Friend products that you use to improve the systems and the efficiency? there because I we talked about a couple of them, but I actually
Yeah,
want to go sort of like start to finish from the planting to the harvest process and make sure I have a clear picture of what those tools are.
for sure. So specifically talking about Salanova.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So on the Salanova production, it's um, first of all, transplanting in 200 cell trays,
Okay, got
which
it.
we have available. And the 200 cell, it's a small cell. You can get a lot in one tray, but it works perfectly for Salanova. Not just Salanova. We use it for any head lettuce,
Hmm.
because they
Hmm.
also still grow like your traditional head lettuce for your big leaf lettuce for burgers and stuff like that. But yeah, we do the 200 cells, um, and then for the soil prep, like say we've got a pad of we do like 30-foot wide by 50-foot field blocks on the farm, and so we have one pad that we're getting ready to plant. We do standard kind of raised beds. The beds are already all laid out, but we do prep, right? So if it's been more compact or it's been a while, they may broad fork, once a year or something. But generally, we just kind of go over it with the cultivator with the wheel hoe that we sell. So it's like, run over it really quick with the cultivator just to loosen up the soil, incorporate uh, some soil amendments, and then we put the fabric down. So just roll out the quick plant fabric. You've got your planting pattern all laid out, so you don't have to do any grid marking or anything like that. Staple it down. You can do an entire pad in like 10 to 20 minutes. Lay out all the fabric, staple it down, and then at that point we use the dibble, which is a new product we've just launched, which goes into a drill, and it just punches the perfect size hole in the soil for the 200 cell plug. Um, so it's got a depth gauge on it. You just ram it into the ground in each hole, and then just with just two fingers, you can kind of grab a plug, grab like three or four of the plugs in each hand, and just push them into each hole. And then at that point we do wire hoops over the beds. This would be in the summertime. Wire
Hmm.
hoops over the beds. Cover it with shade cloth, like a 50% shade cloth, and start overhead watering it in. And yeah, then pull the shade cloth off after a couple weeks, week to 10 days, something like that, and then let it mature. Harvest it after about 4 weeks, depending on time of year. So it's pretty quick. Like 5 6 weeks from seeding transplants to harvesting out in the field, and you're selling it for 12. They get like $12 to $13 a pound for salad greens.
Right, right.
Yeah. So that's kind of the process. So we pretty much sell all of the different components at this point that they use, that my family uses to go into that process. Um,
Dude, I was trying to write them all down. 200 cell trays, wheel hoe cultivator, the fabric inclusive of the planting pattern,
yeah,
the dibble or dribble, sorry if I'm getting that
dibble,
one.
yeah,
The dibble, fun word to say. The wire hoops, the shade cloth, and
yeah.
I probably missed one or two. We don't even need
Well,
the robots. We don't even need the robots anymore,
yeah,
actually.
yeah,
Elon Musk can take the weekend off
right,
because you've actually made it so efficient and easy. You just build a cart on farmersfriend.com and like
yeah.
you're running. You're
Yeah, it's
running.
true. Yeah, and we also sell the overhead irrigation kits, which I mean
Okay,
you
right?
can do drip underneath the fabric, but my family just does overhead because it's so much easier.
I
Uh,
see.
so yeah, we have all the pieces. Not specific to Salanova, but I think it's important to highlight. Um, Covered growing space is huge, for to be
Right.
able to control the environment more. Mother Nature is, uh, you know, it's brutal sometimes. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're trying to run a commercial operation, like you have to be able to have as much control over the whole process as possible. So, yeah, a lot of Salanova they do outside, but that's not as impacted by, rain and stuff like that. Even if the soil's pretty wet, they can still get out there and plant. But like if you're growing tomatoes, for the most part, you're gonna get way better results, be able to control your disease, all that just so much better under covered growing space.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why for us, the tunnels has become like the by far the biggest part of the business because we put together the kits that make it easy for people to buy and build their own covered structures. Um, so I just have to throw that in there, not only because we sell them, but also because it is just such an important part of a viable farm operation at this point. I
Yeah.
mean, we see it over and over. We see it over and over again where, people start growing under covered space and they just instantly are just trying to buy as much covered growing space as they can just because it makes that much of a difference.
Wow, that's awesome. Um, I want to transition to talk about the guide for a minute because we actually
Yeah.
like there's a piece of content, but before I do that, Nina, don't just keep yourself on mute so you can't yell at me if I'm doing something wrong here. But there I am seeing a question from Emma Gunn that I actually think is like an interesting one to just ask really quickly. Because I feel like I skipped over it. She's asking what's the optimum spacing for the Salanova, which is sort of part one, and then part two is do you do multiple harvests for each of those or like each crop? Can you just
Yeah.
expand on those?
Yeah, for sure. So yes, we also have this awesome guide that our team has put together that really goes into a lot of detail on the whole process. So
Right.
anybody who's requested that will be able to get it, which is an awesome resource. But yeah, for spacing, so in the winter they use our 4x8 pattern, which we kind of the way our patterns work is the first digit is number of rows in a bed. This is
Mm,
all of our patterns are currently designed and intended for 30-inch bed systems. So the 4x8 is 4 rows in a bed and the spacing is 8 inches apart. So in row and diagonally it's 8-inch spacing. So that's what they use in the winter months because they let the from like I didn't have it in front of me, but I think it's like from October through like March they use the 4x8, but then like April through September they'll actually go to a 5x6, 5 rows, 6-inch spacing. The reason for that for us in Tennessee is that you can't let the lettuce mature as far. You risk bitterness and stuff like that. So they harvest it a little bit earlier. The heads are a little bit smaller, and so we can afford to do 5 rows in a bed. So that's their system. We actually don't yet have the 5x6 available for sale, but it is something we're going to be rolling out here in the next month or so.
yeah, let me just I want to make sure that I make that part super clear that you said at the beginning today. So after this webinar, guys, there's a piece of content, a guide, if you will, an ebook of
Hmm.
sorts that comes with this webinar today, for everybody that registered and is attending. It's called The Market Farmer's Guide to Year-Round Profitable Salanova Lettuce Production. There's a four-part process, which is the exact process that Jonathan's family uses. This is like getting grandma's super secret, chocolate cake recipe, right? This is the
Yeah.
family recipe that they've perfected. And so Nina, I'll let you sort of figure out or like I guess include specifics on how people can get that, but that's what you were
Hmm.
referencing at the start of
For
that
sure. For sure.
question.
And again, I want to iterate just because I believe that we need to give also credit to Ray Tyler for this because
Uh-huh.
Ray has helped to develop a lot of these pieces of the equation and has also written a whole um, Southern, I think his book, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but I think it's the Southern Salad Grower growing something or other. That is the masterpiece of salad growing, especially in the South. And so Ray gets a lot of credit for that. But yeah, our team kind of put together this. It's a pretty exhaustive, like 17-page document that goes over the process that we use for Salanova growing. So I think that'll be helpful for a lot of people. The other thing, I don't think I answered the question on multiple harvests. So we don't do multiple harvests on Salanova. Technically, I think you can. It's just the quality of your second cut is dramatically reduced, and so they pull it out every time and replant. So one cut per head.
Thank you. Yeah, good. Yeah, that was the second part of that question. Okay. Um, Last question on my side, then we're going to go to some audience Q&A. And at the risk of being repetitive, you've been so gracious in giving lots of advice. This is another somewhat higher level question, but you sit in a very interesting seat that gives you a very interesting lens by which to look at this industry, right? You get to work with lots of different growers in lots of different geographies that need lots of different tools. So the sort of all-knowing, all-wise, all-powerful, should we dare say, right, Jonathan? What would your advice be? Generally, if you sort of think back to your time as a grower and now serving the growers, do you have a single piece of advice that either somebody gave to you that you feel like really changed your outlook or your trajectory, or you yourself have maybe just picked up one or two observations that you would want to convey to the folks that are here and listening today?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. So I think there's been a couple of things that have been um, turning points in sort of my perspective, but I think also the industry at large. Um, I think the use of silage tarps and fabrics becoming more ubiquitous is just a game changer when you're trying to do commercial growing. Now, I want to caveat that with like, I understand petroleum products, like nobody loves it. Um, but what we sell and what we advocate for is high quality UV stabilized products. They're not breaking down
Mm-hmm.
out in the sun. I mean, the silage stripes and the fabric both have, you know, year years of usable life before you see any kind of degradation in the material. So, I mean, is it ideal? I'm gonna say no, but we're still working on. Others are working on like more, yeah, a more eco-friendly options. But the
Mm-hmm.
reality is, if you're trying to grow commercially, like you have to be able to control weed pressure. Like it's just a no. It's just a no starter. Like I've seen so many people who are like, I'm not gonna do any kind of plastic, and it's like the
Dude, it's
first,
it's already so hard. It's already
yeah,
so hard to be
exactly.
successful in this space. Don't make it harder on yourself
Yeah, and
unnecessarily.
it's
Yeah.
just like at this point, with the lack of like better options, like you just
Right, right.
can't grow without it. It's just a game changer using silage tarps for prep for like, I mean, even, after you harvest the Salanova and you pull your tarp, pull the landscape fabric up, if we're not going to plant directly back into that, we pull out a tarp and put it over that. The tarps are always kind of like to the side of the field block and you just pull it back over, cover it. So that's a big one. Yeah, I mean, I will say like we are working on some more eco-friendly, we're looking at rolling out a more eco-friendly option, but I just don't even know that that's going to make sense for commercial growers because it's more expensive and then it's like a single use kind of thing. And it's just
I
like
see. I see.
at that point, there's a lot of other downsides. But anyways, you got to be able to control the weeds. Like weeds will kill the they'll just kill your farm. And
Yeah.
they also really hurt the crop. So if you got a bunch of weeds growing around, it's like robbing nutrients from your plants. Like
Yeah.
I think that's part of why you see better results with the ground being covered. The ground wants to be covered. I mean, that's why, like, you look in nature anywhere, like if you have bare ground, it's gonna cover itself.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, that's one. Silage tarps, ground covers, and the other one is like tunnels. Caterpillar tunnels. That epiphany kind of came from visiting JM's farm up in Canada, and
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
seeing his caterpillar tunnels that he was using on his farm, and hearing him talk about it, I was like, okay. Um, there were some DIY options out there, but there was no kits that anybody was making and shipping at that point, and so we did
Mm-hmm.
that. And I mean, from the very beginning, the market just kind of like, was just eating it up. It shocked me. My dad was actually like, I don't think it's a good idea. I
Yeah.
think you should probably focus on other things. And we've sold thousands and thousands. And so, but I mean, that is another one where it's just kind of like I think everybody's always known like covered growing space is a winner, but
Optimal, yeah.
you see more and more small farms just starting to use more covered growing space. And I mean, if you look at like what the Netherlands has done with like uh
Yeah, man.
production,
Yeah.
it's insane the amount of yield they get out of their greenhouse operations there. And so again, if you're trying to do it commercially, you have to be able to control the environment as much as possible. So weed control and, environment control are key. So I think those would probably be the two things I'd say. Like invest in those two things early on and you will save yourself so much headache.
That's awesome. There you have it, folks. Um, well, we have some questions that are rolling in. We're sort of conscious of time, so let's
Yeah,
treat these, Jonathan, like a rapid fire.
sure.
I'll feed them to you in no particular order here, and then you can give us a quick hit here. Um, Question from Josh is, do farmers in your network who use your planting fabric, do they use it with low tunnel systems?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, so we sell the wire hoops. There's other methods. There's some methods out there where you put a wire hoop and you're just covering a single bed.
Uh-huh.
We What we like to do is just cover the whole field plot. So like, why cover just a single bed with like, you know, it just makes more sense. So we'll put the wire hoops across all the beds and then just take a big piece of shade cloth or insect netting or row cover, whatever, and just cover the whole plot.
Um, if one were to punch the stakes through the fabric, does that diminish the lifespan?
Not the staples that we sell. So I
Okay.
mean, fabric you would generally use landscape staples, and we sell those, and it's just you just kind of push it in and wiggle it a little bit, and generally it just kind of like forces its way through the weave in the fabric, and that doesn't diminish the
And
life.
you're good to go. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. You've got an uneducated guy asking these questions, so I might not even be asking them in the right way here, but
Oh, you're
you just
good.
interpret what the
Yeah.
person actually means. Um, all right, sounds good here. Let's move on. Yeah, we already asked Emma's question. Heather asks whether do you have an opinion on the best locations to grow miniature vegetables for customer demand? It's a broad question, no doubt. So like maybe you can just sort of comment to either your state or your region specifically, but do you have
Yeah.
any areas that you've sort of particularly seen?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I mean, if she's asking about like areas in the country, I mean, I can tell you that we sell the most product, the highest density of product for us goes to Washington State
Okay.
and North Carolina.
Okay. So yeah,
Those
kind of
are
opposites, eh? Yeah.
two, yeah. And honestly, if we like pin out all of our customers across the United States, it pretty much just duplicates the population.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot on the East Coast, a lot on the West Coast. But I mean, I feel like there's other people that have done deeper dives into this. I'm trying to think. I've watched some videos, but like, if you can go anywhere, where's the best place to go? Um, I don't feel qualified to answer that question. We've just always kind of been here, and so it's just make the most of where you're at. But
Yeah.
I mean, if I would say, I think like pick a spot for sure where you have the most chance of success, whether it's like environmental pressures or like, I mean, I think that, again, like Elliot Coleman, like he was in Maine, he made the most of it. But like, if you're just looking at where's the best place to grow, probably not Maine, like,
Probably not rural Maine. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Maine as a
So,
state is what, 98% forest, I think is the
yeah, I
stat,
mean,
right?
it's
Yeah.
definitely, yeah. I mean, his
Yeah.
farm, like his homestead, like was forest. He had to like
Right.
clear the
Right.
forest.
Yeah.
It's like it's an uphill battle. I mean, this is just a side note. Like I remember spending time on his farm, and they were kind of clearing out a new area, and it was like
Uh-huh.
these massive, like solid granite stones. And I've never lifted like a heavier rock than that stuff. Like we have rocks in Tennessee, but they don't have that density. I was like, mercy, this is crazy.
Yeah, the rocks in Maine are on the meat and potatoes diet. They just,
Yeah,
they're
it's
built different
insane.
up there. Yeah. Must be it's the weather or something. All right, moving on to a couple more specific questions here. What's the harvest weight of the lettuce? I assume that's like a per head question, but can you address that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I do not have data like off the top of my
Okay.
head. You know, yeah, I mean, they get a lot, it's like it's pretty dense, but it all depends on like how mature, like, I don't know if the question is like per plant or like per, 100
Yeah,
plants. We would need
sorry,
to have a
Michael.
little more.
Michael, if you're still listening, you can
Yeah.
specify that for me there.
I'm afraid I'm not probably going to be able to give an answer even with more
Oh
specificity,
well,
but
then,
it's,
Michael, save your fingers.
but
No need to type it.
well, I mean, it's just, it depends on the time of year too, because again, in the
Okay,
summertime, we're harvesting them when they're smaller because, um, they'll start to get bitter if they get too big.
right. That's what you were saying.
Whereas in the wintertime, they can get bigger and more established. So,
Okay. Yeah,
but
he was able to clarify a per plant, but either way, Michael, let's just mark that as something that we can follow up with
yeah,
after.
I think Ray Tyler in his information has a lot more data on like yield rates and stuff
Sure.
like that. Sorry, did I say Ray Tyler?
You said Ray Tyler, yeah.
Yeah, Ray. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. And then so Roger's here has a question for us, a little bit more of a strategic question. Do you have any ideas on a good marketing strategy for lettuce in places where it's traditionally less consumed? I don't know exactly what place that would be, but kind of back to our like it goes on burgers thing. It's not always salad. Do you have any ideas around how to market that
Yeah, I
properly?
mean, if you're looking to sell like market something that's like larger leaves for like burgers and or sandwiches and stuff, you're going to want to grow more of a traditional head lettuce because
Uh-huh.
Salanova is like smaller leaf lettuce.
Right.
It's generally quite a bit smaller leaf. Um, but I mean, just from what I've seen, it's, direct to consumer or, restaurants. Like I had the opportunity recently to visit one of our customers in Colorado, and they sell exclusively to restaurants around the
Mm.
Denver or Boulder, Colorado area
Mm-hmm.
and have an incredible business just exclusively going to restaurants. And so like,
If it's who
I
I'm
mean,
thinking of, I think they actually are on our program too, but we'd have to we'd have
esoteric.
to we'd have to
Yeah.
look. Yeah.
Yeah. They're a esoteric culinary. We did a little video that I think is going to be coming out soon.
Cool, cool.
It's an awesome farm, and it's one of the few farms I've been to that's like exclusively um, selling to restaurants.
Yeah, running that business model. Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
So I mean, it's hard to say, but like you just have to try. There's got to be area, whether it's local grocery stores, or restaurants or direct to consumer farmers markets, like all of those, you should be able to move salad greens.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's great. I'm going to take a quick look right now just to see if I've missed any questions, but if there are any other final questions, now would be the time to ask them because we are the countdown here has started, the sort of 5 minute countdown before it's time.
I like the question about the AI powered laser weed killing solutions. That sounds
Oh, I did miss that one. Please, by all means, yeah.
so. I mean, I think it's really interesting. Like, there's a lot of technology that's starting to be applied in the agriculture space.
Yeah.
And we have our own like pretty advanced technical team here. We're not trying to do anything on like laser weed killing at this point, but there are some companies that are doing some pretty cool stuff. But it's just way out of the price range for
Right.
any of our customers at this point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it is. I mean, it's pretty cool technology. But yeah, it's pretty early stages of that kind of technology, I feel like.
Excellent. Yeah, we got to thank you for answering the question. Yes, thank you to Jonathan for noticing it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Emma
cool.
Emma said 1 pound per head of Salanova.
Yeah, I
A
feel
big,
that's a jumbo
yeah,
Salanova, I
that was
feel
that
like,
was a big
but
one. Yeah.
that's a big dog. Those are up in Maine with the big rocks.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So that's good for questions then, guys. Thank you so much. Nina, is there any sort of wrap up information that needs to be shared here? Maybe I'll just hand you the mic to sort of take us home.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much to you both. And thanks to the audience for all your awesome questions. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is recorded. We'll send up a follow-up email after we wrap up here. So stay tuned for your inbox for that. And the Farmer's Friend team will be sending out that ebook shortly after also to your email. So keep an eye out for both of those resources. Jonathan, if people want to learn more about Farmer's Friend or have any more questions, where can they find you guys?
Yeah. Um, First of all, on the growing guide, I was told, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but I was told by our team that in the registration process, they actually had to click that they
Yes.
wanted it. So if somebody is now realizing, oh, I didn't click that I wanted that resource, you can definitely reach out to us and we'll send it to you. Just email us at like support@farmersfriend.com and ask for that guide. Yeah, so Farmer's Friend, we're a tools and supplies company. We do high tunnels, lots of weed barriers and hand tools and weeding tools, all that kind of stuff. So check out our website, farmersfriend.com, if you're not familiar with us. We have social media, Instagram. We're on Instagram, Farmer's Friend LLC. We have a YouTube channel, Farmer's Friend, where we've done some really interesting videos, like inspirational content on our customers all over the country. And we even did a European tour and visited customers all across Europe. And so, yeah, our mission, like there's kind of three prongs to our mission. It's like inspire, educate, and equip growers. So we have this whole series we call The Good Life, which is inspirational video content. It's not like advertisements. It's just going and visiting customers that are using our product and like telling their story in the most kind of like inspirational way we can. And we've been doing that for years now. It's been really cool to see how many people have come to us and said like, I kind of went all in after watching a number of your
they're
videos and
excellent.
stuff.
They're
So,
excellent.
yeah,
It's the best produced content that I have found in our industry, period, bar none. The storytelling is
yeah.
excellent. The videography is excellent. You guys do a very, very good job with
Awesome.
those. Yeah.
Well, we've taken a little bit of a break the last few years, but we're having more conversations about upping the frequency again on that content, just because it is really cool to bring that
Yeah.
kind of value to the space. So check those out. Other than that, I mean, I think that pretty much covers it. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, our website. Get on our mailing list. We do pretty regular mailing at this point, and a lot of it's educational, tips and tricks. We try to do at least a couple of just value-based emails a week. And so a lot of people enjoy that as well.
That's awesome. Thank you so much again for your time today. And thanks to everyone who could make it out today. As I mentioned, yeah, stay tuned for both those emails. And as Jonathan said, if you didn't press that check mark and you want the resource, let us know or let Farmer's Friend know. We'll make sure that you guys get that. We're going to wrap here. So thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you at the next webinar. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
See ya.